Hey everyone, in this next part of our video series, Edwin and I are going to start diving into kind of simple technical setups to work with AI in some really new ways. The focus of this specific video is to do two things: to give you an initial starting simple technical setup to get you out of just thinking about working with AI through just a chatbot. And then second, to show you how you can start to do amazing things like building a website in like 2 minutes, right? All these things are going to start being possible for the everyday person and educator and are crucial to thinking about AI education and AI literacy, as we've said before. Before we begin, as we started this series off, when you start to use these tools right now, there are enormous ethical, privacy, and security concerns. Even if these companies tell us in 6 months they've solved them, they absolutely haven't. Because one of the first things that's going to start happening is AI is going to be put onto our computers and allowed to work with our files. So when you work with these tools, kind of the thing you have to do right now is clear off any sensitive data you have on your computer while you are working with them. It's up to you if you want to start connecting these tools to your email systems and other types of things. There are inherent dangers to that, but you've got to start understanding the risks that are involved, as a lot of these tech companies are dropping products that are very much in development, and we're going to be using one or two today that I'm going to show you. So let's dive in. The way we've organized this video is I'm going to start by building a simple website in a very new tool that's just come out from Google called AntiGravity. I'm then just going to show you how you can do the exact same thing using Claude Desktop and a different kind of editor tool, as I'll show you. And then I'm just going to show you how to manage files and do different things with a different tool called Cursor, and we won't even be talking about websites. And the purpose of this is going back to what we talked about with Edwin in our previous video. Don't be stuck in a tool. They're going to change rapidly over the next year or two, and it's the patterns you want to think about, and we're going to try to bring those out through a discussion of these different tools. By the end of this video, you should leave with a new way to think about organizing files on your computer through an integrated development environment, as I'll talk about. And you're going to see the power of, when you do that and you integrate AI with that, you can do things like build websites in minutes. And as we'll talk about in future videos, quickly refine those and think about being more creative with them with things like agents and skills. So let's dive in. We're going to start with Google AntiGravity. This is the page you go to. You can search it, okay? It's a very new tool that Google has just come out with. You'll notice it's called an IDE, a next generation IDE. IDE just stands for Integrated Development Environment. When you build software, when you work with AI, you don't do it in like a Microsoft Word. You need a way to work with it. That's what this is. It's kind of a very new type of product, but it's relevant to how software developers have been doing this stuff for years, and we'll talk about that. So you don't have to go ahead and download anything I show you today, but if you want to work along, you can, or just think about if you want to do these things afterwards. So when you download AntiGravity, you're going to get a screen like this. Actually, right before you get a screen like this, Google is going to ask you to log in, okay? And it won't have access to your Gmail, but it will sync your Drive and other things to this. So when you start using products built from these companies, as we've said repeatedly, you're going to notice how they're going to link your data to that company, and you've just got to be really careful about these things. That is the world we are walking into. When you do that, if you go through the permissions, you're going to get a screen like this, and you're going to get an open folder. The very first thing you should do with this tool, and with all the tools we'll talk about today, or any tool else that comes out like this over the year, is go up to its settings menu. And this is really important for these kinds of tools. In this case, there's an anti-gravity settings menu, and you're going to go ahead and click it. And stop for a second and look closely at this, right? One of the most important things in using these tools is to kind of have an idea of how they operate with what's called permission systems. And basically, to put it short, right now, and this might change over this year, but the aspects are going to stay the same, you can operate these with very strict permissions where they have to ask you every time to do something, or you can operate them with very laid back permissions where they're operating autonomously. And this is all about how much do you want to hand over to AI and the agent? How much control do you want to hand over? To put it simply, when you start using these tools, you should always operate them in strict mode, right? And in this case, not all of them may have something called strict mode, but they'll have something like it, right? If I hit strict mode here in anti-gravity, you'll notice I can no longer select all these other options down here. In essence, what strict mode does in anti-gravity is it always will ask your permission, or it's supposed to. One of the first things you also have to understand is even with everything that these tools add on for strict mode or enabling permissions, it's AI. There's still kind of an unknown terrain of like, is it going to actually follow what you're asking it? It should, but know that it doesn't always. So for example, if you have a permission that it should always to ask you before removing a file, it should do that, but it might not. And that's kind of, again, why so many folks are cleaning off their computers right now to use these things. You need to be very careful. So in this case, I'm going to turn off strict mode. And you'll also notice that when I do that, I can kind of say, hey, always proceeds, agent decides, or asks for review for the review policy. I always leave it on asks for review. If you say agent decides, you're giving control to the agent. And if you say always proceeds, it's like it's just going to always do things, download things to your computer, do all sorts of other things. So again, if you're new to these tools, you absolutely have to start with the strictest permissions. And then as you get better with them, depending what you want to do, you can loosen those up, right? Some of these are really going to only be understandable to like a programmer, and that's fine. Just know for anything, just always ask for review, right? If you're an everyday person, an educator, and using these kinds of things, just be as strict as possible. So with that, let's go back to our anti-gravity. I'm just going to start by clicking open folder. And on my computer, on my desktop, there is a folder called website. There is nothing in it. I'm just going to open it. Okay, and we're going to talk about it. It's first going to prompt you, hey, do you trust this folder? Yes, I created this folder. I'm going to trust it. So the way these editors are all organized, anti-gravity included, all the other products are roughly like this. On the left, you have a pane, which you'll see up there. There's a website. That's your folder. If I had files in it, they would be listed down here, right? In the middle is like where you select a file, you get to view a file, okay? And as we build some files here, you'll see that momentarily. All right, so if you had PDFs here, you could click it and you would see them here. If you had text files, whatever here, you could click it and you would see it here. Now on the right is kind of a new, but it's coming everywhere thing. It's literally your AI agent built into this tool. This is like your chat box, right? You can think of it at a simple level like that, but you can do a lot more with this tool, okay? So to show you how this thing works, and I'll unpack kind of some basic things else also in this tool momentarily, I'm just going to go here, and I could simply write build a website on some topic. The topic I'm going to do it for, I thought it would relate to educators. A student we were working with had this wonderful idea. Hey, teach educators how to build like a STEAM summer camp website. Science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, right? Everyone wants to build a website in some way, whether it's for their personal use, for a summer camp. So in this case, we're going to very, very quickly build a STEAM summer camp website. Now, I could simply type 3 sentences and ask the AI to go build it. I've actually written a larger prompt. I'm just going to copy it in, okay? And I'll kind of scroll back up to the top. It's not all that wrong. It just says, hey, build a simple single-page website for a STEAM summer camp based in Atlanta, Georgia. Visually engaging. I'm not going to read all this. You get the idea. Little bits. You can put as much as little as you want in this. You could stick a file in this website folder instead of putting it in the chat and ask the AI to read that instead, right? But for now, you get the idea. 2-paragraph prompt, okay? Now, before I hit that blue button to say send and go, I want you to notice a few things. First, if you click here, there's a planning and a fast mode. All these tools are going to start having different modes. One worthwhile to know about is planning mode. If you want to, building this kind of website is actually quite simple. But even still, you want to use planning mode because what the AI will then do is it won't just jump and try to find a solution more or less. It will work through steps and kind of think about which is the best order of steps, and it will result almost always in a much better designed thing. If you do more complex things, plan mode is essential. Over this year, there's going to be a lot more modes that are built in here. Another thing is, of course, you can select the model. In this case, I'm going to just select Claude Sonnet 4.6. I like Claude models for website building a lot. I could probably do Opus, but this is a really simple website, even though for some it'd be like, wait, this thing's going to build a website? That sounds complicated. This is a simple task for AI right now. Now, we will talk about after we build this simple site, how to make it much better. We'll get into that in future videos, but I'm going to select Claude Sonnet here and I'm just going to hit go. Right? And it's going to start working and thinking through its plan to build this website. As it does that, different AIs will do different things. Sometimes they'll prompt and ask questions for you, and more of this is going to happen this year. You're going to get feedback from the AI on questions it has as it's trying to work and build the thing that it's doing, right? So it might prompt me for a few questions in a little bit. I'm going to step away and we're going to come back in just a few moments and look at what it's created. Okay, so we're back. That took about 3, 4 minutes, okay? And Anti-Gravity's finished its plan. It's actually finished building the entire one-page website. Okay, so you look at my original prompt. Again, you didn't have to prompt with something that long, but I did add a little detail to be a little better page output. And you can see it's building, it developed a plan, building Steam Summer Camp website. It created an index.html file. For those who don't know, every website has one of these files. It's kind of like your root page for kind of creating a website, okay? And if you look over here in like the file explorer, when we started the first thing, oh goodness, you see it. There's a file in there now. It's index.html. And goodness, you can see all the kind of index.html code here. Don't be afraid of the code at all. We are, in essence, moving into an age for everyday folks, educators, where sure, there is great value in knowledge about kind of reading this code, but there's also enormous possibilities in not having to worry about it too much and using AI to generate and create things that functionally work for the everyday person like websites, okay? Back to the kind of AI chat over here, okay? It gives some progress updates, creating the complete index with all sections, styling, and JavaScript. Okay, great. Verifying the website. Now what these AI are doing, they actually build it, then they launch it in a browser on your computer, and they test to make sure it's working, which is quite impressive and quite interesting. Okay, again, AI is going to be connected with your browsers, enormous privacy and security things that come with that we all need to know and be knowledgeable about. I typically use this logged out of any Gmail or any kind of email accounts on my browser, dedicating, usually I just use one browser to work and test and let AI use, okay? Goodness, it made a recording of a full page scroll. That's amazing, right? Couldn't do that even a few months ago, right? And then it kind of gives you a summary of all these sections, okay? And then down here, you can open the page. And if I hit open, it's going to go ahead and take me to that page, or I can actually go and just view it myself. And here's our website. This is nowhere near perfect at all, but with minimal effort, with a single prompt, with hardly any context, it gives me a baseline starting point that looks, sure, it looks like a generic template, but very quickly, as we'll look at in other videos, you can customize this thing and do all sorts of things, right? So that's a website in 2 minutes, okay? Let's go back to Anti-Gravity and talk about a few more things before moving on. Okay, first off, you see this little button to accept all, or actually you can reject the changes too. In this case, I'm just going to say accept all. Now they're there. Okay, they've been accepted. Here's your actual page. Some things you can do to be more sophisticated. You could, if you know a little bit about this, ask, hey, create what's called a CSS file instead of just one index.html. If you want to say that in everyday language, you could say something like, okay, this looks good. Here's some edits I want to do. Could you make it a little cleaner, organize it a bit better, remove redundant code? Those are kind of fancy technical languages we'll talk a little bit more about in the future, but there are little things you can do to quickly refine this. Because if you just keep building, sites or whatever you're doing, vibe coding is the phrase here, they quickly get out of hand. They get big, they get massive. And in our future videos, we're going to show you some techniques to avoid that, of course, that are really easy that all of us can do. So that in a nutshell is how you build a website, a single one-page website in Google's Anti-Gravity. Now, let's go do the same thing with Claude Code and Visual Studio Code together. Okay, so now we've built our Steam Summer Camp website with Google Anti-Gravity. Let's get away from just thinking about a single tool. Let's do the exact same thing with a different set of tools, right? The tools we're going to be using are Claude, kind of their desktop application. So again, you don't have to download this. You can just walk along, but here's a different way to work. You can download the Claude desktop app. And then the one other thing you're going to have to download is a different kind of editor called Visual Studio Code. This is a really popular one in the software community. It's simple, yet it can be incredibly complex and powerful, and it is open source and different than Google Anti-Gravity, right? This thing isn't going anywhere. I don't think Anti-Gravity will either, and there'll be more different products, but showing you an open source alternative to something like Anti-Gravity. So you can go ahead and download these for whatever. It's not just Mac, for whatever you're working on. And once you have Claude Desktop and Visual Studio Code installed, this is kind of the process you would go to. Let me switch into the Claude app, right? And here, if you've looked at our previous videos, again, I'm on the $20 Pro plan. So you could do this in the free version. It's possible. Again, these free versions are getting increasingly poor, and they're going to be inundated with ads and privacy and security issues, though all of them will be in some extent. But if you pay for a little bit, you'll get these options at the top: chat, co-work, code. In this case, this is a website. It involves some coding, right? So code is the better choice here. And all I'm going to do before I get started, I'm going to select a folder, just like I did for anti-gravity. I'm going to choose a different folder. And on my computer, I now have a website 2 folder. There's also nothing in it, just like when we started with our anti-gravity session. And similarly, I got some things here: ask permissions, auto accept edits, and plan mode. I'm going to hit plan mode again. And I'm going to hit the same prompt. I'm going to paste in the exact same prompt I gave to anti-gravity, right? And I'm going to go ahead and say, go ahead. It's actually using the exact same Claude Sonnet 4.6 model. So we'll see the results, right? And I'm just going to hit go. Oh, of course, do you trust the workspace? Of course, in this case I am, but we all know the problems with that at this point. We've said numerous times. And I'll come back in a little bit and we'll look at the plan that Claude spits out here, and we'll compare to anti-gravity. Okay, so now we're back. We're actually looking at a plan that Claude developed here. So we're reviewing the plan that Claude has generated. And this is really, really useful. Again, this planning mode is a big deal, right? And it's going to stay with us for the next bit here. But I could read through this closely. I could ask it to kind of, instead of approving it, fix some things, right? But this is a great opportunity before it builds anything to actually talk about its plan and some of the things you'd like to improve upon, right? In this case, I'm just going to click approve the plan and start editing, right? And Claude's going to get to work, and in a few minutes, we're going to have a site. Okay, we're back, and now the site is built, right? It's been saved in my website 2 folder. You can read some of the sections. You can read Claude's logic. And then the question is, well, how do I see it? And I think you could probably type okay, open this website in a browser and Claude will do it for you. But one thing about Claude's current status is it doesn't have a file viewer on it, right? So it's not the same thing as anti-gravity, right? What anti-gravity is doing is taking this and an editor and putting them together, which is, in essence, novel. So the one little other step we have to do is we have to open this index HTML file, this site, in Visual Studio Code. So let's go ahead and do that, right? Here we are. This is Visual Studio Code. After you've downloaded it, you're going to see something roughly like this. And can you see the similarity to anti-gravity? All these kinds of editors are built very, very similarly. Again, Visual Studio Code is kind of like the industry standard, more or less, right? So, and it's open source, and this is a great thing to know about. It's not going anywhere. So just like we did in anti-gravity, right? On the left, we have kind of like a way of viewing files, the File Explorer, and look, we can open a folder. We'll do that in a second. In the middle, we're going to see our files just like before. And on the right, you typically may or may not see this chat. Sometimes it's collapsed. Sometimes you have to open it, and I'll show you one little thing that you might have to do to get it to show, okay? So, but to start, I'm going to hit open folder. I'm going to do what we've been doing before. I'm going to open our website 2 folder. Now, if I open our website 1 folder, I'd be able to view what we produced in anti-gravity in here, right? But the website 2 is where I had Claude Code build our site. I'm going to hit open. And look at that. Here we go. Okay, you might have to say, trust or something like that. And if I click that file, there is our same index.html website, right? Now, we don't really see what it is yet, okay? And we'll talk about how to look at it in just a moment, right? But I want you to get the idea that this is the exact same thing as what anti-gravity did, right? Same thing. Don't even need to look at the code, okay? In this case, don't worry too much about the code. We'll talk a little more about that later. The idea is that anyone can do this, right? Now, a couple things. You can have some chats in the chat box here, just like you did in anti-gravity. If that's not showing up, it's worth knowing when you use Visual Studio Code. Don't be intimidated by this, but it will have different things here. And we'll say a bit about all of these in our future videos, but one for now is it has something called extensions. And this is a way you can link with what other people built. If I type Claude here, okay, you're going to get the Claude code for VS Code. If I click that, you'll see this. And I've already installed it, right? You can kind of see if I want to uninstall it, I can. You might just have to click install and log in to get this chat box to show up, okay? Worth knowing about. One other thing I'm going to show, to see this website, I'm going to download something called a live preview extension. Again, this isn't complicated. You just would say install. I actually think live server. That's what you want, not live preview. And I've already installed that on my computer. And if I just get out of here, go back to my file viewer, you'll see there is down way at the bottom, like a little button that says go live, okay? And I'm just gonna click on my HTML file and I'm going to hit go live. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna take me right to my website. I'll make it big. And here we have our website, okay? Here's a different kind of website. It's some similarities for sure. We actually use the same Claude model in both cases, right? You use a different model, you're going to get different outputs, right? I mean, no matter what, right? Same input, different outputs. This is a classic example for a simple website. But you get the idea. This is a great starting point. It's different. You could go back to Visual Studio Code and have conversations in the chat, refine these things, add what you want, and do different things. So let's look at one final product to wrap up this video. This product is called Cursor. It's also free and similar to AntiGravity, but it's been around for a lot longer. There are, of course, paid versions, and like AntiGravity or any of these tools, they require you to log in, create an account, and obviously there are paid tiers, right? But you can use this for free, and you get many AI models through it for free to start, but you'll see limitations immediately when you start using this a lot. Now, when you download it, again, all the same ethical privacy security cautions apply here that apply to a product like AntiGravity. But when you download it, you're going to see something like this. And of course, it looks nearly identical to AntiGravity as we get more into it. And of course, VS Code, because they're all built off similar types of things at this point. If you go ahead and hit Open Project, I've created a different project on my computer. It's called Demo, and I'm going to just go ahead and open it. Now, when you open it, you're going to see something very similar with subtle differences to AntiGravity, right? One thing that might help is I'm going to open up our file explorer or file viewer on the right, and instead of it being on the left here, it's configured on the right. And you can of course see a few things in this folder, in this demo folder. I've put our initial website folder, so there's a folder in here, and hey, look at that. If I go ahead and click on our index.html, there it is, right there. I'll collapse that. I've also put like an example paper in here, and look at this. You can like take a look at it. You can put PDFs, you can put other types of things. You get the idea, right? On the left over here, we have a chat. I can reconfigure different things, make it bigger. And on the far left, we have this thing. It looks like you can say new agent, agents, and I'll talk about that momentarily. Instead of building a website, I'm going to do a few quick things to very quickly show you, these tools are not at all just about coding projects, but they can be used for all sorts of things. I have a new chat, and I'm just going to say, please convert this PDF to a text file. And the reason why I'm doing that is text files are much easier for computers to read. Look at this, just like all our other ones, it's going to say allow, don't allow. Depending what you're doing, this is going to start installing stuff on your computer, right? I'm going to say allow because I know what it's doing. I know what it's trying to do. I'm going to go ahead and say that's fine. But if you don't, as we've said in other videos, make sure you know what it's doing. And if you don't have to do anything. Don't do anything, right? It's reading the text from the PDF. It's making a text file. Check this out. While it's working on that, I'm going to spin up a new agent, okay? I'm going to ask, read the index.html file in the web site folder and give me a MD file with a summary of the website design. Okay, I'm going to go hit edit. I'm going to go just let it go. A few things. One of the first things to talk about is now you can have agents do things for you. You can have chats do things for you, and you can walk away. You can go work on something else, or you can spin up another agent chat. I'm kind of using those terms interchangeably here. We'll talk about them more in future videos, right? But that's very powerful. Another thing is it's creating an MD file. This is important. MD is just short for Markdown. You work in Microsoft Word, there's doc files. When you start working with AI, MD files are huge. All MD files are is it gives like a structured way for AI and you to like write text to a file. You can do it in a text file. An MD file just has a bit more structure, and then you can go take a look at it. Now, hey, look at this. If you go look in the right here at my file structure, right? I can make that a little bigger so we can see it, okay? Let's hop. Our example paper is now a text file. Again, this is much easier to read, okay? And now my website summary is in an MD file. And you can see in an MD file, you get kind of cool colored things like this. If you preview this in other ways, it will like visually look good. And that's the value of these MD files, right? But you can see it's kind of giving me a one-page summary of, my website. If I didn't like this or I didn't care about the colors, I could just ask, hey, give me just a content summary of what's on this website. You get the idea. You can say lots of different things. You can spin up lots of different agents, okay? The last thing I'll show you is I can just say, spin up a new agent, and give me a summary of all my different chats from this session and save it to a new MD file called summary.md. And I'm going to hit OK, all right? So it's checking all my agent transcripts for this session, as it's saying, and it's now going to create a summary of everything we did. Why is this valuable? If you stop for a moment, instead of having to worry about like your memory and long chats or other kinds of things you want to break and go do something, just store what you've been working on in an MD file and then come back to it later. Some people call this giving AI a memory. Another way to think about it is it immediately leads into the idea of giving AI context, which Edwin's going to talk a lot more about how to do that in more sophisticated ways. So to step back, we've introduced 3 different tools. We've built a website with AntiGravity, right? Showing you how agents and editors work together. We then built the exact same thing with a different form with Claude Desktop and Visual Studio Code, an open source editor, right? Showing difference in tooling and how to do that. And then we hopped into Cursor and weren't even talking about websites, but simply how to manage files, save memories, go from files, PDFs, whatever, to text files and start working on this. The point of this is not to say, here's how to use the tool. It's to open eyes to some of the possibilities that are coming forward for everyday people, educators, students to work with these things. All to say, as we say throughout, enormous ethical privacy security implications that you have to be thinking about as or even before using these tools, whether you even want to. But we hope you leave this video with a new way to think about using AI, a powerful way of both some of the amazing strengths and possibilities here that are opening up, and also, some of the ways to think about it to critique AI in some new ways. In our next videos, we're going to walk through much more detailed ways to manage context, to think about agents, to work with agents. But if you stopped here and left, you now have a simple toolkit to do things like build websites, think about managing notes, PDFs, files, using basic agents and chats in new ways that we hope is useful.